You are watching the POLCAST.
Good morning, North America, and welcome into the POLCAST. It is Sunday, January 5th, one day before certification of the 2024 presidential election, and God willing, it still happens. This isn't our first time going through this little spiel. We had a little bit of technical difficulties, so we decided to start fresh. And it's better just to start fresh than to try to mix and match, because everything we do here, we may not do it live, but whatever we do, we put out, and that's the product that we run with. Because like life, you don't get a lot of do-overs. So welcome into the POLCAST, and we think we got a pretty good show for you lined up this evening. We've got a lot of guest speakers or individuals with extensive backgrounds in various areas. Most of it is combat or military related, but we're excited about this evening's show. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and welcome in the folks that we have this evening for the show. And first is the Colonel. Colonel, why don't you go ahead and say hi to everybody? And hello. Thank you for that. We have a new guest sitting in the third chair. It's Mr. Phil, who I've known for about 15 years now. Mr. Phil, if you go ahead and say hi and maybe tell everybody who you are.
Hi, my name is Mr. Phil. I am a retired former paratrooper and once again Mr. Olympia Award champion, also the Antarctica Snowman Master and the Senior Drill Sergeant of the Year for the Russian Army.
God bless. You see, folks, you just can't get that on regular TV. Also with us tonight, we are blessed to have both Mr. Black and Mr. White joining us for the conversation. If you gentlemen could go ahead and
greetings,
hello,
salutations.
In addition to that, we have a live studio audience this evening, and we have a couple other individuals that may chime in from time to time with to opine. And what brings us in this evening is the events that have happened over the course of the last week. We have had two horrible incidents, one that took place in New Orleans early New Year's Day, and then the other one in Las Vegas in front of Trump Tower that also took place New Year's Day. And we wanted to come in and kind of give our opinion and what we see, kind of an after-action report. Not that we were there or anything, but what we see unfold with the events that took place on that day. And who better to talk about these type of things than former special operations men or Green Berets, but also there's some other experience that's in the room as well. Most of us have seen what has taken place. We've seen the video of the Tesla truck that was blown up by Matt Berg, or Matt Livingsburg. Is that his name?
Livelsberger.
So we're all kind of aware of that. But there are a lot of questions, and I know personally that it seems that it's too convenient how it was rolled out, especially with the connections you have between Elon Musk and Trump, and a Tesla being used in front of Trump Tower. And did he shoot himself before he blew himself up in a vehicle that is able to drive itself without human interaction, minimal human interaction? And I think that most people that are paying attention to what's going on in the world and have already seen things that just don't make sense should be looking at this and asking the question, what is going on? So with that, I'd like to open it up to everybody that's here and kind of what do you guys think is going on with that? Do you have any Any just open
So
thoughts?
I can bring up New Orleans.
Let's go into New Orleans first, because
So,
they might be connected, they may not. We may be maybe completely off, but go ahead.
I
And,
watched a short video because, like, ultimately, that's a huge failure in security.
absolutely.
And like New Orleans, and you're neck of the woods, right?
We may or may not have somebody that is from Canada that has lived in that area of the country of the United States.
It's like downtown New Orleans, Bourbon Street. That's one of the most well-known party places in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
A vacation there twice.
Right. And like on top of that, it's the New Year's. It's like I watched a video on YouTube. They're supposed to have barriers that are set up to prevent vehicles like this from having access downtown, and apparently the barriers were down for servicing.
Really? And what did somebody? I was talking to somebody though this evening. Mr. Phil, do you want to chime in?
The video, the footage I saw from the cross street of Canal Street. If you've ever been to Canal or seen
Yep.
the actual Canal Street, it's like 3 or 4 lanes both ways, and it's watching the white F-150. He's like patrolling down along towards the adjacent roads, and he's looking for a way to get in. If the barriers were up or were not up, I mean, you can't really tell, but he finds a gap, and it's obviously big enough to fit the truck through. And once he fit it in, he just went to work.
Did you say that? In addition to that, that he was kind of probing
Yeah, he was probing. He was
and looking for a spot to
He
enter.
was going with traffic, but if you look at the video, it looked like he's going slower than the traffic. He's looking for a weakness, and he exploited the one he did find. So if it was down or not, I mean, you can't
They
really tell.
they admitted that the barriers were down.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And
from what I
that's what I heard as well.
It's like, not only are you like one of the most popular party locations in the States, it's on one of the most popular party nights
Yeah,
of the year. So it's like, out of all the nights to have your active security measures working, that is the night to have those barriers up and running.
well, and
like no fail.
And not only that, with everything that I mean, for folks that are actually actively paying attention to the climate of the world, and you would think that law enforcement in particular would be like heightened. And I'm not familiar with. I've heard some stories from New Orleans, like police officers. That one, they're underpaid, they're understaffed, they're undertrained. And a lot of these guys, they work security for the clubs, like on Bourbon Street,
Like off duty.
off duty. Yeah, and they're allowed to do it, and it just seems that it's a no-brainer if you already have these systems in place to prevent a vehicle from.
Or if your primary system is down, you have redundancies in place.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
anyone worth their salt that knows anything about securities is you always layer your security, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie zones, right? So
And-
that way, when one fails, you have a backup.
Yep.
And as a construction guy, I can't help but think, what type of maintenance are you doing on a barrier?
Yeah. Oh, to have it down.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
that sounds bizarre.
Hydraulic maintenance at the most, I suppose. Hydraulic and maybe electric.
I would have to imagine that a place like that is similar to any place with a lot of tourists, that you're going to have a lot of cameras as well. And I'm not for sure. I know from Milwaukee Police Department, I did a little time with them as a police aide. They have this is 30 years ago. They had like an ops center where their cameras that they did have on the traffic cams, somebody's monitoring that. That vehicle stands out. A Lightning, F-150 Lightning. That vehicle kind of stands out. And if he's going down probing, you would think that would warrant some type of response.
You mean almost like somebody probing a perimeter with a rangefinder?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. Or somebody outside of I don't know, a fob or your base, walking around the outside perimeter. People
Taking
would
pictures.
notice that. And I don't think it's as simple as saying that it was just a lax in security. that allowed for that individual to conduct his nefarious activities. But then you also have a quasi connection between him and the individual that allegedly shot himself in the head in front of Trump Tower. And both of these guys were at the same. Allegedly they were at Bragg at the same time, but then they were also.
Excuse me, I
Campbell.
believe it's Liberty now.
That's the first one. I'm gonna go ahead and drink for that one.
Yep. The disrespect.
Not to break from what we're talking about, but I'm curious if you're on Bragg.
Push.
If you were on Liberty and you were to say that, would you get like a NJP?
I believe they have a system very similar to Demolition Man,
Oh,
right? With the seashells.
Yes.
And anytime you have bad speak, there's just an alarm goes off, and I believe there's a no pay due system. They just start taking ducats from your paycheck.
You get banned from the chow hall.
Yep. So every time it's like $100 off your paycheck every time you say Bragg instead of Liberty.
What's interesting about that as well is, and this is kind of a side note of that, speaking of military bases, that now there's going to be a heightened security on military installations because of what happened over the course of that 24-hour period in Las Vegas. And it's because the individual in question was a former Green Beret. And I've heard a couple people mention the fact that he might have been CAG or Delta. And I don't know if that's true. I haven't heard anything to that fact.
From what I understand, he's active duty 10th group.
Still active duty 10th group.
Yep.
And I mean, everything that I've heard come out of it is from people that are in 10th group is that this guy wasn't this. They paint a picture of this person as not that type of person that would do this act of terror.
Yet there were no warning signs
Yeah.
of any that he would commit an act.
And was it that he was not headed. Las Vegas was not his destination. No. Did you want to say something?
No,
Phil?
you got it.
Las Vegas was not his destination. I believe it was New Mexico. And we have a picture I'm going to bring up that kind of shows, it details essentially his route that he took from Colorado, and the path he took. Now this is based off of Tesla certified Tesla charging stations, and I don't have a Tesla, so I don't know exactly what that means. I'm assuming that based off of some of the video that I've seen, where you can actually see him walking around his vehicle, and they have him on camera several times, actually charging his vehicle, and
It's similar to your Prius, isn't it, Mike?
it's a modified Prius.
Okay.
I think it's got a little more. It's a little more up armored as well, from what I believe.
He put an extra battery in it so it can do 50 miles an hour.
Well, and was he in? So he was an 18 Echo. An 18 Echo was a Special Forces Communications Sergeant. That is correct. Does anybody know that? From what I heard, he was an 18 Echo.
Well, former 18 Echo moved on to 18 Zulu. Well, yeah, Echo, Fox. So he went from communications to intel to team sergeant.
The team sergeant.
Yep.
So he was an active team sergeant
Well,
when.
I don't know if that's confirmed. Like there's a possibility that he promoted to E8 Master Sergeant, and that's when you would change your MOS to 18 Zulu, and he could have done team sergeant time and been fired, or he could have gone and been a B team ops. I know it's kind of breaking down into the weeds a little bit, but for all intents and purposes, he's E7 Operations Sergeant or E8.
Now, some of the interesting things that were brought up about this individual is in the last month, he apparently or allegedly converted to Islam.
Last year.
Was it last year?
As in 2023 last year? Or?
No, like within the last year, over the course of
Within the past 12 months, he converted. Okay.
Could you say that again for the Mr.
Like within the past year, he converted to Islam, roughly.
Okay. And there
Allegedly.
was there was a video that was out on X that had a reporter that I've never seen this individual before, but she was allegedly allowed to enter Matt Berg's house and videotape everything that she saw in the house, which I would have thought would have been a crime scene.
And touch.
And touch, yeah, like literally, it looked like something out of a Hollywood. Like it looked like a staged video. Like
Crime is different in 2025.
it is like how this and not only that, and I'm not really care about this so much, but if you have somebody, if you're going into this individual child, you get this breaking story, and everybody's going to be checking it out, at least on X, because it had over 1 million views when I looked at it. Why would you be dressed like you just left the gym? Because she was wearing yoga pants, and I've never saw this person before, and she looked completely unprofessional. And so something didn't seem right, and I have not to this point seen anybody counter that or say that it was that usually they'll put a flag on X that says that this isn't real or it was scripted, but there's nothing to that effect. So allegedly it's real. We don't have the video at this moment because we're having some problems with video capabilities. But apparently this was this individual's house, and it was just too neatly set up where they had the Quran over here and there was bomb-making material, all too well packaged.
Almost as if you went to like a museum.
Yes. Staged.
Yeah, a staged house.
Yeah.
Like
And
this is where he did this. This is where this happened. It's just all convenient.
well, and this is the other interesting fact that that I saw or read about is it the security number or the personal ID number for Signal, which is an encrypted form of, for those of you that don't know, it's an encrypted form of communication. That do any of you have any background on that as far as like that ID number that is attached to an individual once they set up an account? Can anybody go into a little bit more detail into that?
If you join a group chat and then say your device gets destroyed or damaged and you have to get a new number, you download another instance of Signal, you get another verification or encrypted ID number that shows up in that group. Or anyone that you talk to, you'll see, like if one of my buddies here lose their device and they new phone, I get a text from them, say, hey, this is me again, and also above or below, they have a new ID number attached to it.
And that we just pulled up this this is allegedly
Safety number.
a safety number that was pulled from Matt Berg's phone that highlights when that was changed, and that corresponds with the map of his travel along that route. Right when you have that red circle there, where it shows that something happened at that point, where all of a sudden he's changing his PIN number and.
It could be a different IMEI, like your SIM card. You have your SIM card serial. You also have the IMEI number. So every IMEI is independent and different from every one of us. So I've got the same device, different SIM card with IMEI. I'm going to get a different safety number.
Okay.
That's how the encryption works.
And so when I heard that, immediately the first thing that I thought was, and we have a gentleman that's here with us. He may want to chime in. He might not. He's Larry the Cable Guy. We'll just call him that. But it immediately reminded me of what took place pre 9/11 with Dick Cheney when he changed how the Air Force responds, or the Air National Guard, how they respond to a plane that loses or towers lose contact with the birds. It used to be before 9/11 or before Dick Cheney got involved and changed those parameters. It used to be that they instantly have those birds up in the air. He changed that, where they had to get confirmation from NORAD in order to launch birds. Well, all of a sudden, we have 9/11 happen, and shortly after that, I think it was within a matter of 2 weeks, they change it back, and it just seems too convenient. So seeing that you have something it's personal information for Mr. Berg that only he would have access to, and for him to change numbers, especially when you look at the supposed email that he sent Sean Ryan, and I believe he send to several other podcasts.
Sam Shoemaker.
Sam Shoemaker, and who's a former retired warrant. I think he's an O2.
Yep. Intel guy.
But he did also send that email to somebody say several other.
The Anti-Hero podcast?
We have another gentleman. You want to go ahead and chime in, Ty? Or?
Yeah, sure. It was the Anti-Hero podcast. He sent it to pretty much everybody that he could get a hold of, from like Fox News, like everybody he could try and get a hold of. And the Anti-Hero podcast was one that after watching the Sean Ryan show, they went and scrubbed their inboxes and they found that he also sent emails to them too.
And
Same
well,
email address.
he wouldn't send to this podcast because not too many people watch this podcast.
Not yet.
But not yet. But one day we'll get there. So those things are kind of some of the things that I've noticed so far. And I mean, it's the 5th tomorrow. We're just barely scratching the surface of this, and who knows with this going on and what he detailed about Chinese technology, anti-gravity type of technology that only China and the United States has, that is connected to all these drones that we've been seeing on the East Coast and around the United States, really for the last 3 years, because we've had other situations like this in the past couple of years where there's been drones that are just kind of hanging around, and the government doesn't seem too interested in them or is allowing it to happen. So there's all these like just questions that come up, and I personally feel like this is kind of like sending a message. You have 2 electric vehicles conducting 2 acts of terror on the same day within a couple hours of each other. And I'm wondering, is there more of this to come? Are we just seeing kind of a one and done type thing? Does anybody have any opinion on that? Or
Caveat we could dig into later is the
Go ahead.
dead internet theory, but that's going to be another entire segue because
so dead internet, can you kind of elaborate on that a little bit for people that may not know what that is?
not even a theory anymore, because the dead internet theory was that years ago when it was proposed, like by other various YouTube channels and guys and like conspiracy subreddits and whatnot, it's like, oh, you're speaking shit. But the idea being of the theory is that the content that you would see on the internet, like anywhere you look, would be created by bots. Bots here and there. And if you look the past week, Facebook came out dead front and center, and I'm gonna quote Penguin Zero is like getting the fart directly from the butt. 'Cause Facebook runs Meta and they run Instagram. That's not my original IP. That's from Penguin Zero. That's a Moist Critical. He's a funny guy, another streamer dude. But anyway, what the Zuck is putting out is there's legit AI personalities that they're just putting out on their platform. So it'll be a guy it's a regular old house dude that will talk about cooking, or another like non-binary character you could talk to about your feelings, and they'll talk to you like real people. But that's gonna flood Facebook and Instagram and Meta entirely. So it's not even a dead internet theory. But like if you look up any of these recent interactions, these attacks, just scroll down the comments and tell me they're not bots that are all commenting and fueling the fire and feeding into the opposite side of the narrative that we're looking at.
Like the Russian troll farms.
Yeah.
Oh, I recently, I'm just getting on, I've been on X for 2 months now. 30% of the supposed followers that I have on my account, they're all bots. And they all kind of do like a similar dance. Like the pictures are always the same way. It's always an individual looking away from a camera so you don't see their face. And I guess what I'm trying to say is what happened on New Year's Day in all the information that we're getting bombarded with, do you think, are you kind of summarizing that possibly they could get to a point where they're like going to kill the internet?
No, it's just gonna be overtaken by naysayers and people
Well,
that would feed the narrative. It's just propagation to the nth degree.
To put it as simple as possible, the dead internet theory theorizes that the majority of the internet is AI content.
Okay. Oh, and I agree with that. I mean,
it's no longer a theory; it's now a reality,
yeah.
right?
Well, and even, I mean, I'm sure everybody in this room has seen some form of AI. Recently, the ones I keep seeing are Jay-Z and P. Diddy kissing in a prison cell. And it literally, I mean, it literally looks like them.
It's hard to catch.
Yeah, and then you got 50 Cent in the background, and he's laughing about it. And it's like,
So I think what he could be positing is that essentially these attacks were caused or conducted in order to gain
Ground
and
really.
get data,
Yeah, and gain
right?
ground.
Like,
do you think that's
can you elaborate on that? Gain ground.
Well, I mean, because we don't agree with what the narrative is from mainstream media. I hate saying it, MSM, mainstream media, because
You need to be a little closer to your mic.
it's almost like saying to a non-fan of the MSM or mainstream media makes us look, crazy or whatever. Not crazy, actually. Not crazy at all here.
well, kind of like it's they've been painting this picture of men, especially men in this group right here, as the problem.
Yeah.
And to push that even more or put your foot down on the gas, they are contributing to,
Demonizing.
say that again,
Demonizing.
demonizing.
Told Mr. White the other night, like, I feel like they're demonizing, like, this group specifically, and they're starting with the best, because that's why not, like, they started with a 42 alpha fucking pogue, like, whatever, but then they went directly to an 18.
A Green Beret.
Yeah, like,
Because the narrative has been shifting that there is a threat to the country, and that threat is illegal aliens or it's illegal aliens,
I would agree because
right? And it's been gaining. It's been gaining, and I don't want to say popularity because it's not a popularity contest. Well, for some it is.
momentum.
It is. It has been,
gaining momentum.
So it's like, how interesting is it that there are 2 terrorist attacks caused by service members?
And I would say I'll just say I won't speak for the entire group, but I understand just in my own community how big of a problem illegal immigration is, because I've worked in Central and South America, and I see individuals at the local Walmart that are sporting tattoos that could be affiliated with MS-13 or maybe a cartel, and it's something that most people just kind of. It's literally like passing by.
They dismiss.
They dismiss it. They are not. And we've been programmed for so long to kind of just go with the flow. Hey, all these lemurs, they're pushing them over the cliff. Just keep going. And I think that there may be, I'm praying that with this new administration that there is some accountability, because I think that's the root of most of it. We want accountability, but we're not seeing it. We haven't seen it. And I really don't even know how accountability looks at this point, because for me, my whole life, it's like none of these people have been held accountable. They're just they get promoted, or I think Hillary Clinton today, didn't she get the Freedom
yeah.
Award along with George Soros?
Yeah. Soros is on the list. I don't know if it happened today, but she's one of them to receive it. It's disgusting.
Yeah, and I mean, George Soros is an individual that helped, I don't care if he was 14 or 15, but helped his Nazi handler during World War II, and then has actively worked towards the destruction of the United States for the last 30 years. And it literally is a slap in the face on the door out. I know this is kind of sidetracking, but it is a part of whether you want to call it the spider web or the string chart that you would look at a wall and say, this is, this is a little piece of it, just trying to put people like I said, individuals in this room in a bad light. And that's why for me too, I don't think that guy killed himself.
No.
I just don't. And there's been rumors that also he might still be alive. Does anybody have any thoughts on that or anything that they've heard?
So, the first thing that comes to mind, personally, is it's just very uncharacteristic of what a Green Beret could do. And it would be one thing if he was a very young Green Beret with 1, 2, maybe 3 years on a team, right? But you're talking, I think it showed, when I say it, I saw a picture that showed essentially a very rudimentary timeline of his career. He was a 18 Echo, a comms guy, back in 2006. That's almost 20 years of actually being a GB, right? Like, what sets Green Berets apart from every other SOF community is our resourcefulness, right? And there's other things too, but that's one of the top. That's one of the top factors, right? It's how resourceful we are. Like, how many times have you been told, "Hey, this is your mission. We don't really have any money or support or."
Make it happen.
Make it happen, right? Just make it happen. So, if our goal is to blow up a Cybertruck, and I think everybody at this point knows how flammable and explosive lithium batteries are, like, we can't even travel on a bird with lithium batteries.
Nope.
Right? And I'm pretty sure all the majority of electric cars now use lithium batteries. Extremely flammable, and I think the Cybertruck probably has just
A lot.
off the assumption, probably one of the largest battery packs of all electric vehicles right now. So it's like the gasoline and fireworks used are extremely amateur, and the
That's what I was
location
thinking. Yep.
is also extremely amateur.
That's some
like-
fucking.
So
that's some
all
kid
you would
shit.
have to do is find some way to put those explosives, the fireworks, even remotely adjacent to the battery pack, and that would have been an enormous explosion.
I think you bring up a great point.
Right. So the fact that he wasn't resourceful enough as a 20-year Green Beret, it's just, dude, it does not make sense. And if we're all being honest, you have to be, for the most part, a somewhat competent Green Beret to make it to 18 Zulu.
Yes.
Competent
Absolutely.
enough, right? It nowadays it is tough to become an 18 Zulu or a Master Sergeant.
It's almost like a diversity hire was told to go make an explosive in a vehicle, and that's the result.
You know what I was thinking when
That's somebody who went on to, like, if Chat GPT could answer a question
I'm not
about how to blow up a Cybertruck, that would be the answer they would get. But Chat GPT wouldn't do it because it's super left leaning, right? They immediately would tell you that's violating their terms of service, and it would probably report you and automatically ban you from the app. But that was the Wish.com version of how to blow up an electric vehicle.
Now, one thing just based off of what you said, Mr. White, I heard stories of early on that when I first got to group, that Green Berets were essentially pirates, and they were able to acquire a lot of things. And
Never done that.
I know everybody here. I'm gonna say it right now, and I'm gonna speak for everybody right now in this room that nobody in this group does that. These are all good, God-fearing men in here. But there are a lot of pirates in the group, and those pirates know how to acquire certain things. You look at the waste by the DOJ, by the Department of Defense. I think they just came out with numbers that they don't know where like $1 trillion is this year, the DOD.
I'll audit.
Yeah, and things go missing all the time. Now, if it were us, people in this room, if we lost a pair of binoculars or maybe a compass, we're going to get held accountable. But as Mr. White alluded to, that Green Berets are resourceful the fact that he was using gasoline and fireworks does not make any sense. Because if he was going to send a message, a real message, that truck would have flew up probably about at least 30 feet up in the air, and it would have, I mean, it didn't even break the windows in the front of the lobby, like the entranceway. It didn't even break any of the glass.
Yeah. Also, conveniently, his CAC card was legible. It was in good enough shape to be legible, right? But the body was burned beyond recognition.
Except for the tattoos that they found on his stomach.
The belly meat they found.
Yeah.
Like, and anybody who knows anything, we have
Flesh
somebody that
burns
has some medical background in this room.
That's you.
And what he told us earlier is that belly meat or belly flesh is as tough as a rhino skin. Is that right?
Yes.
We'll accept that answer as concrete.
Well, Mr. White and I took the fingerprints off of a body with no head once, and there was no tattoos to be found on that one.
Couldn't afford them.
Couldn't afford them.
You know, though, it reminds me of an event that happened in American history not too long ago, where a supposed giant airliner plane smashed into a building at over 400 miles per hour, and everything in there was engulfed in a huge ball of jet fuel, with the exception of a passport. And I believe Team Daddy Berg also had a passport on him. Did anybody hear that?
He conveniently had everything on him
To identify
to
him.
assist the authorities in identifying him. But his body was,
Except for his belly meat.
his belly meat, yeah. Everything else, though, was fine.
I do find it interesting how he happened to have a Desert Eagle on hand, and he shot himself in the head, and there was no imprint from the cameras of the valet outside the vehicle heard it. Desert Eagle, it's 50 AE. It's a pretty quiet weapon. It's like a 22, right? So that sounds.
I was going to say 410,
Yeah.
but in addition to that, even
It's the quietest weapon known to man.
that video from Trump Tower when he pulled up. I've been to Vegas, and I've been in Vegas or that early in the morning, and there's usually always people around. There's usually security around too. I did notice in the windows you could see some people washing the windows. It looked like a little bit, but for there to be nobody, it was like Trump just won. It's New Year's Eve. Everybody is counting on a new start, a fresh start. I would have thought there would have been more people, even if it was 7 o'clock in the morning. Usually at New Year's Eve, that place is crazy. You cannot get a room in Vegas for under $300 on New Year's Eve. And this was, for me, that last time I tried to do that, it was like 10 years ago.
Can I bring something up that I just realized?
Yep.
Especially among this community. If he shot himself, right? Was that
Allegedly.
Allegedly. And what weapon did he use?
A Desert Eagle 50 AE.
50 caliber.
So, if you want to end your life and make sure you have a weapon system that will end your life, are you going to grab a fucking Desert Eagle? That is one of the most unreliable pistols ever created.
They're expensive too, aren't they?
Well, it's a novelty. It's just a cool gun.
It's
to
something
have.
you hear about
You
Saddam
should-
Hussein.
You bring it to
having
you bring it over to your friend's place,
That's a meme.
right? And you got all this cool ammo, and it doesn't fire half of it,
It's almost like an AK.
right? And especially a GB who knows weapons knows, like, if you want to grab a pistol and you want to ensure that it is going to fire, like in this scenario, to end your life, you're gonna grab a Glock.
Or, as Mr. White and I know, a 357.
Oh,
I'm gonna put a lamp on the other side of my head.
now we're talking.
It's a long story. We're not going into that.
I got one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead. Anything, bring it up.
Propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
If Joseph Goebbels was alive, which I'm glad he's not, 'cause fuck that guy, he would have a rock hard boner with that level of propaganda. Because if you ever seen the game Cyberpunk 2077?
Oh yeah, yeah.
All right, like obviously memes are the way people cope, or fucking whatever toxic shit we like to do. There's a meme I found, like the Cyberpunk logo in the bottom left, and there's a picture of the Cybertruck burning right in front of Trump Tower. And they're like, if that's not the perfect allegory for a 2025, like I don't know what is. Like bro, like the shit just writes itself pretty much.
Well, I believe that yeah, I think it was Stalin that, and Colonel, you may be able to answer this better than me, but didn't he say that like television and computers or phones they're nothing but a smaller television is the biggest propaganda piece available to us, and we're going to use it.
That was one of Vladimir Putin's aides. Said the first thing he said when they brought us in for the first meeting was, the television is the greatest propaganda tool ever created by man, and that is all we will use it for, and that is what we will use it for.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I hate to say it, but
Stalin said, I don't care who casts the votes. I'm only concerned who counts
who
them.
counts the votes? Who counts the votes? And hopefully, I think everybody in this room is we're still confident that we're going to be able to right this ship. But this definitely, in my opinion, and maybe somebody's got a different opinion, this is a message that was sent to the Trump team, and not just him. And I hope all these guys are looking under their cars before they get in, because we're so close right now to hopefully change an accountability that we can kind of rest easy for a little bit. But unfortunately, everybody in here has, for the most part, has seen combat and knows a thing or two about propaganda and how the world works. And I think that's too why we're all in here, because we know how propaganda works and how the world works, and we're like trying to find answers. And what we're being told just doesn't add up. And
Shit.
yeah, and I hope that I'm sure we're going to get more information and more propaganda as this unfolds. Mr. White, you want to say something?
Well, just a good example of propaganda is I don't know if you guys know this or remember, several years ago, and I can't remember which news organization or outlet it was, put out an article how the U.S. government was training to invade the U.S. by having all these UW exercises.
Is this the one in Texas?
Yeah, all the one in Texas.
What is the name of that?
Yeah, but it's Jade Helm.
Jade Helm.
Yep.
Jade Helm.
And it's essentially it was a UW exercise, and like they were right in the context of the operation that its goal is to overthrow a government. But it's like we were the units participating in that.
We were the instrument for the surgery.
Yeah, and that the U.S. was definitely not part of that exercise by any means, right? Like we developed these fictional countries to invade, right? And it's just funny because take that, for example, and then you would go into the comments and just see all these people that are bought into the propaganda and genuinely believe that the U.S. military is training to overthrow its own country. And it's just like, we're going to, like, my right arm is going to fight my left arm?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how does that make any fucking sense?
Obviously,
just,
they haven't been in, what's the area around McCall? For certain things that take place in the woods around there.
Pineland.
But it's like,
Pineland.
we have the access, we know behind the scenes of that type of propaganda. Like, we know what that propaganda is because we're bought into that. So, like, this is a similar vein of propaganda, right? Like, there's 4 GB sitting at this table, and there's 2 other, service members with
And Larry the Cable Guy.
30 plus years combined, we have 1 foot in this door, and there's just a ton that
Okay.
doesn't make sense.
So since you went there, Mr. White, here, I don't know the facts of
You're not
everything.
going to ask about the Darien Gap, are you?
No, sir.
Oh, okay.
I don't know the facts of everything that went on in New Orleans, and I don't know the facts of everything that went on in Texas. But I think we can all agree that we all learned during COVID that the narrative was way more important than any of us understood.
Absolutely.
Even myself.
Yeah, I didn't.
So
I didn't know what.
we watched what happened there. We listened. We told people within our inner circles, wives, family members, whatever. I did not understand how important the narrative was to the populace, correct? B, now they're using militant language, and here's the connection that I think that I don't think we've talked about so far that is paramount is you've got a military service member supposedly supporting ISIS. The other attack, whatever, was a former Spec Ops guy.
No,
Active special operations guy. I have been saying for years that we are the biggest obstacle to the powers that be doing what they want to do in the United States of America because they know that we will not roll over and lick our balls and let them do whatever they want to do.
Amen.
So what did they just do? For years, for 20, 25 years, we've been fighting Muslim Islamic terrorists, right? Extremists, right? Narrative, language, it matters. So what we saw in New Orleans was the ISIS flag, military member connected to Islam or the Islamic regime, whatever they want to call it. Then you've got
some form of jihad.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Then at the same time, you've got the Spec Ops guy doing whatever he did, and in the mind, and with a narrative and what we call the mental programming, or what I call, I'm sure there's a different term for it. Now, in the general population's mind, you've got the terrorist over here, you've got the Spec Ops guy over here, and we've linked them together. And in the mind of the populace, the Spec Ops guy and the Islamist are now as one.
Mm-hmm.
We all know that we are, after volunteering our life's blood for this country, we're now on the domestic terrorist watch list, which is a complete crock of shit.
And the current.
There's the link. There's the connection. And what it's going to do is it's going to allow them to tighten the noose legislatively and in the mind of the populace to come after the people like us that will not allow them to do what they want to do in this country. And you know what?
Didn't we just recently? Was there a bill passed about essentially U.S. troops on U.S. soil?
Yes.
I think we were talking about that the last time we were in here.
U.S. assets.
DoD
assets.
Yes.
Specifically intelligence assets.
Yes, and it seems to be like the colonel just mentioned. They're setting the table,
Thank you.
and I hate to say
Mental
that.
programming.
Go ahead, Mr. Black.
I will maybe a little bit contradict to what you're saying. I got kind of two ideas of what might be going on. Occam's razor course of action, one being that he was Matt Berg.
Matt Berg.
was
Matt
trying
Livelsberger.
to, just illuminate things that happened in Afghanistan in 2019, as well as the threat against the Trump administration with the use, or just general American politics, or threat to the American populace through the use of drone activity from adversarial governments like China and Russia. Also, I don't think he's trying to hurt anyone. That's probably why he did his VBID the way that he did, to where it didn't damage anything. It was kind of like amateur looking, but also it still made the point, still blew up enough to char his body. But then the other side of that could also be maybe he wasn't planning on blowing himself up, because he also said that they were, like, the government
They
was
were
watching.
following him.
Yeah.
DHS,
So maybe-
FBI.
Yep.
Because he also mentioned, I think, trying to get to the Mexico border.
He did.
So maybe they might have been watching him, didn't know that he sent emails trying to hit up these different podcasts, but before he was maybe he was still gonna try to blow up a vehicle to highlight some facts, but then go out. But maybe whoever's watching him intercepted him. You're going down the ship. They schwacked him and sent him with the vehicle. That's I don't know. That's kind of far, but you never know.
Well,
But then going a little bit deeper, there's a common thread between the two that mainstream media hasn't hit, and it's that both of the perpetrators in both of these crimes were recent Muslim converts, along with being service members. So I think bringing back the Al Qaeda 2.0 plan that Sarah Adams and other people have illustrated, perhaps that is like the initiation of that 2025 year plan, but they don't want to reach crest. You know, there's a threshold of awareness a little bit because it's already been put out on several podcasts and outlets, but maybe they don't want to link them publicly together yet because it might bring more awareness with all the federal agencies to be looking out for it more specifically.
So are you saying because you think that the more light you shine on it, light's the best disinfectant, the more you're going to have eyes that maybe want to get to the bottom of this to really figure it out, and they don't want that.
Yeah, perhaps Matt Berg was turned in a mosque, but they weren't ready to fully put him out there so that eyes are turned more on Muslims. I also think, like you said, I would be curious to see how legislation turns following this, but I think there could be more to it as far as like the Al Qaeda 2.0 thing that we just don't know yet, and I'd be curious to see what happens following it. But I think it's a possibility. It could be part of that Al Qaeda 2.0 thing.
I as of this point right now, I do not think Matt Berg was a Muslim convert. I think that was a narrative pitched
From 10th group say that like
that he was.
they say he started going up. Yeah,
Okay.
I said it on the chat.
Well, okay, so but one thing that I find interesting about that,
I think it's a link to go after veterans and spec ops guys in this country, and a link to allow them to start World War III with Iran and any Muslim country, i.e. or Russia, that they want to go after.
and I don't disagree with that, but the thing that I find interesting is that all we have, and if anybody knows any different, all we have is
And
an
this is
email.
all speculation.
This is all speculation, but all we have is an email. We don't have anything handwritten by him, which I would think if you really were going to send a message, and if you felt that way about, I'm not going to say his name, but the colonel and I both know somebody who was involved in the SOF community that during one deployment was involved with over 200 people being killed.
Yes.
So, and I think most people in here would agree that if you do a little research, we have killed in the last 20 years plus over 1 million people, civilians, children, women, when you combine all of our combat operations. So I get how deep maybe the 2019 incident that he was referring to, how much of an impact that probably had on him. But I mean, we've been doing bad shit like that for a while. I mean, I wasn't there when it happened, but when Sergeant Bales in Bellenbai, Afghanistan, when he went and massacred that village, I mean, I know a lot of guys that were there, and I have a connection. Maybe it's on the camera, maybe not, but to that team. And there was a lot of that stuff going on. And, I'm like, it just doesn't add up. But go ahead, Mr. Black, go ahead.
All right, hold on. Sorry, I got like two different things going on in my head. But maybe it is possible that the 2019 stuff caused enough moral injury that made him susceptible to being turned by jihadists. I don't know. But then the other thing, looking a little bit further back, if you're like a jihadist strategist, like what better way to sow discord amongst the populace by it's not your typical profile of like a Muslim, like foreign Muslim.
You'd see a video. You'd see a video of them like,
It's an American.
like they're gonna, this is what I'm gonna do.
Think of who the top recruit would be showing up to a mosque if you're trying to
Green
flip somebody,
Beret.
do some bad shit. It'd be a service member. It'd be a homegrown person. Because why? Because then it would confuse everyone. Now they can't trust the people that protect them.
But do you think that's too cleverly packaged?
Well, I don't think these people are stupid.
I don't either. But
I
it
think
just
I
seems.
think they've got a lot of working heads too. I think Iran's got some people in there. I'm sure advising these people. I mean, they had man-pads come across the border. That I think everything's just kind of moving pieces. I don't think they're stupid at all. And this is kind of what we've been thinking they would do by sending all millions of people across the border. We're just like, well, it's a matter of time before they get some Iranian or Chinese or Afghani versions of GBs in there, and they train people up, they radicalize them, and they send them out. Well, look, now it's possible that, I think they definitely probably did get the guy that did the New Orleans thing.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a very narrow thread, but it's possible they got Matt Berg too. Because he was susceptible from mental health issues, not dealing well with things that happened during his career. I don't know.
So then, if that is the case, hypothetically speaking, what's the course of action then for law enforcement?
Just be vigilant. I
Do you-
mean,
but
if you see something, say something. That's for everybody.
Don't ask, don't tell.
Yeah.
I'd like to bring something up.
Sorry.
And
I couldn't help myself.
like, don't get it twisted. Like our country and our systems are flawed, but it's still the best system on this planet.
Agreed.
So, like a lot of people will be like, this X person will blow themselves up or do something, and the FBI will be like, well, he was on our watch list. And people are like, well, why didn't you do something? It's like, well, in order for us to do something, we would have had to invade his right to privacy.
Yeah,
I got something after that.
Right. So it's like,
I do too. If I can remember it after you're done.
All right, I got to remember mine first.
right. It's like, so what can law enforcement do? It's like, well, what do you want them to do? Any more than what they're doing, they have the right to enter your home.
Yeah, I mean, apparently they're watching them already.
But it's like, right, it's like until he actually does something that is legitimately illegal to the point to where it crosses that threshold to where, all right, we can nail this dude for a long time, as opposed to him committing some petty crime, misdemeanor crime, where he'll be out in 6 months or his lawyer can get him off, right? A lot of what people don't realize is, well, he's been on the FBI's fucking terror list and they've been watching him for this long. It's like, bro, for them to do anything else, they have to invade privacy. And once they cross that threshold, there's really no going back. Kind of like, what we're seeing with, political targeting, like with Trump being targeted politically, right? So it's like, that's all I wanted to bring up. It's like, just be careful what you wish for, right? Because what separates our law system from other law systems is we would rather let 99 criminals go so one man can be free.
Yep.
As opposed to other countries are the opposite.
And
They will burn one dude, or they will burn 99 free men just to get one guilty man.
yeah.
Right. That's all I had on that.
Just like to kind of, well, I guess this isn't really a caveat, but what I'm interested in, like what you just brought up, is has this guy, was he going to, what is it, C3?
P3.
P3. Was he going to P3? Do they have a record of him talking to somebody about these demons that he was struggling with?
Generally speaking, from our population, it's extremely unlikely he was going to behavioral health.
Yeah.
It's just not really. It's encouraged, but I mean.
And did he have a family at all, like
Just
kids?
had a newborn, right? He just had a newborn, and then what Mr. Black was showing us were texts from other GBs that work with him, and they said that this is very uncharacteristic of him. He just had a newborn. but he has been going to a mosque within the past year.
Seek absolution.
And I mean, I know personal experience. I see that's the thing that it rubs me the wrong way. It's like we would identify somebody like that.
And I was literally just thinking about
Yeah,
that.
we would identify
I've
somebody
worked
like
with-
that. I've had to do welfare checks on guys.
I've known hundreds of Green Berets, and never once has anyone come to me, and I'm making light of the situation, but hey man, you want to be a Nazi?
Yeah.
Like, like no one's ever slipped an emblem to me. Like, what does that mean to you?
We're meeting behind the bleachers at 3.
One thing to bring
Hey,
up.
hey, you want to earn your red laces? You know what I mean? And we are
Romp stompers.
and like we are on that, for a lack of a better term, we are on the farther right end of the spectrum politically, and it's like, full disclosure, I haven't seen any extremism.
I
the
don't
farthest right
remember
side
seeing
ever.
anything.
Right?
Also, one thing to mention too is like he still had and maintained his TSSCI. Like he had the highest level of clearance and
Yeah.
maintained it, and that's one of the easiest things to get revoked.
With SAP access too.
So like if
Really?
you were
Special
really,
access program. So you know.
So if you were like truly being an extremist, then like that would have been pulled pretty quick. Like,
Yep.
That's one of the easiest.
I've seen guys lose their clearance because their finances were shit.
Or they
That's the
get
biggest
caught
one.
drinking too much.
Yeah.
I've seen guys lose their clearance because they sped down 5 Mile Road, and they're like,
But he still.
now you got to
Was
park
that-
your car here, and you got to walk or have somebody drive you.
Was that Mr. White?
Never? He never sped on
I'm
that
not
road.
dumb enough to get caught.
If I could bring like an in the middle of this, like kind of.
Tyler, can you say that again? You broke out for a
Sorry,
second.
could I like bring like an in the middle perspective? Of this?
Absolutely.
You know, for me, what it kind of looks like is that you have this GB historied career. Everybody has said like it even went so far as a PAO called the Sean Ryan show's producers to tell him like, hey, like this guy's like really good. Like he's a good dude. Everybody that can confirm him have said like he is a solid person. Like he's a good GB, he's a good operator, like all that stuff. Operator in the terms of like SF. And from my perspective, being a non-SF guy, just being a regular infantry guy, this looks like a whistleblower who's bringing some stuff to the table that people don't want to know about. And then, well, how do we spin the narrative real quick? Well, he was an extremist because he went to a mosque a couple times, and there was a weird comment that was made from that podcast with a producer was like, at the very end of it, the PO made a weird comment. It was like, yeah, but his son's DNA didn't match the body in the truck.
Yep. Like that's the reason why he did
So
it.
they tried to spin it. Now the way they took it was okay. So they're trying to spin it as that's why he did it, but there's other things that could kind of be implicated there, right? So that's kind of where, for me, looking from the middle of the road from that, without the UW background and stuff like that, to me it just kind of seems like are we taking somebody who is trying to blow the lid on some stuff that they didn't want to know about? So what's the easy narrative to push right now?
And then you connect
Well,
him
now
to
he's an extremist. Now we found all this stuff in his house. We found a Quran. That's kind of how I looked at it, where it was kind of like, that was like a 180 real quick overnight, because USASOC, even like a USASOC PAO said like, hey, he's, for all intents and purposes, like a perfect, like a good guy for us.
and
So,
so
but a PAO is also there to cover his, boss's ass. So.
yeah.
You gotta kind of take that with a
Not-
grain of
not
salt.
kind
But
of.
It is just food for
Is.
thought that kind of when I was listening to the podcast and like looking at the articles that Mr. Black had sent and some of the stuff that had been sent, I was like, wow, this is a very interesting story, just because this can really kind of go either way. This one's like a really, really gray area one. So that's just a little bit of perspective I wanted to throw in there.
It seems that your perspective would be a good lead in to tie him to the other cat in New Orleans. And in addition to that, I mean, we've just already talked about it, but it really bothers me the fact that we know, those of us that are Green Berets, we know how tight a team is, and a person in that position, as the team daddy, is always, I mean, we're always probing them. like always testing them. And you really have to be of strong will, mind, and character to deal with that. And if there's no Asians in here, if there's any chinks in his armor, we're going to see that. We're going to isolate that. And I guarantee, as Mr. White has already alluded to, the majority of us, we would be looked at by mainstream folks as right-wingers and ultra right-wingers. So the fact that you have somebody that converted to Islam within a group of individuals that are tight-knit and are concerned about the continuity and the cohesion within a very tight-knit group of 12 men, I don't buy it. There's something off there.
Well, and
Go ahead, Tyler.
Can I bring up a couple other things too?
Absolutely.
Is, like, I'm like I said, regular infantry. I don't have any like high speed background or anything, but like
Neither do we. No, I'm just kidding. We got it.
Hey, Mr. White, if you were going to make a V-bid, would you use a bulletproof truck and pack it full of fireworks and gasoline?
No.
Nope.
Right, okay. And as a regular infantry guy, I would also, like, Google something real quick and probably do a lot better of a job.
Mm-hmm.
And this is leading to me, what it seems like is it was the Trump Towers related. And if you look at, I don't know, like, on that map necessarily, but coming from the border,
I'll bring that map back up.
so where I'm from on the border, any major interstate or major freeway or anything like that, they have checkpoints ran by the Border Patrol there. So if you have a vehicle loaded with stuff, it's going to pass through a Border Patrol checkpoint. Going either direction for the most part, too, because on the way out, they're looking for drugs, on the way in, they're looking for guns and money. That's like a big thing from where I'm from, right? So maybe, I don't know, he had a checkpoint. I don't know what's on that intersection. Maybe that might have been why he kind of changed his direction. But to me,
But the
if-
path that he took, I mean, it
Well, in the email, he said, if I don't make it to my destination, I'm
he said
paraphrasing,
Mexico straight up. He
my
was like-
destination of choice or the Mexican border.
Okay, that's right. Yeah. But to me, if like Trump's about to be the president and I'm trying to make a statement, but I don't want to actually hurt anybody, and I take a bulletproof truck, as is
There are other Teslas that are much easier to blow up.
with those lithium batteries, right? But if I'm not trying to hurt anybody, but I'm trying to make a statement, I make a kind of ish V-bid and I park it at the next president's hotel.
Symbol.
I got something.
Yeah.
So before we knew any details about who it was that did it, the first image that I saw was Trump Tower or the Trump name, and then a blown up V-bid. And I was like, oh shit, dude, this is tied to the New Orleans thing. The New Orleans was a white truck.
electric
like
car,
terrorists.
electric truck again.
Well, and terrorists, they wear white before they suicide themselves usually. And then also I was thinking that's kind of like the MO of Al Qaeda, the V-bid. And so the imagery is you see a blown up car on Trump's doorstep at the beginning of 2025, which also made me think of like Al Qaeda 2.0. That's why I keep bouncing back to that. But that's kind of was it just like a little bit of messaging, like foreshadowing? They're trying to send something out there, just discreetly. I don't know.
Or
Or is it
yeah,
just coincidental? I don't.
essentially a starting point. Like, I mean, literally the beginning of the new year. Let's kick it off. Let's turn it on.
Right.
Possibly.
Oh, and they want to hit not only
You got to talk up a little bit more, Mr. Black.
they want to hit the finances too, and who's a big financier?
Vegas and right in Vegas.
Vegas, and then Elon Musk is a leading figure in boosting the economy, the financial gain of the country, and he's super tight with the incoming president.
I mean, he was there. I believe he was at Mar-a-Lago with Trump New Year's Eve.
Yeah, I think there could be a lot of symbolism there, and they are big on symbolism, especially if you look at 9/11. 9/11 was conducted on 9/11, tracing back to 1922, whenever there's like a British figurehead that went into, I think it's like Pakistan. I don't remember the countries, but Sarah Adams talked about it on Sean Ryan's podcast as well. Like they even chose 9/11 because of the symbolism from almost 100 years back. Like everything that they do, it's symbolic.
Well, you could even go 10 years before to 91, September 11th, 91, when George Herbert Walker Bush had mentioned the New World Order, and Mr. Larry the Cable Guy may be familiar with that as well. On September 11th, 1991, he had talked about a New World Order. 10 years later, we had 9/11. And coincidence? I don't believe in coincidences. And the Bush family is a whole nother show, not to get too far off a topic, but I mean, we could spend a lot of time on those evil bastards. But
And the New World Order.
and the New World
And the
Order.
fact that they talked about it for 20, 30 years and none of us recognized it at all.
Well, and even, I mean, personally, this is my personal opinion. Al Qaeda too. The connection. I mean, these are groups that we had a big part in creating and funding, and a perfect example of that is Afghanistan. Today, they are marching into Pakistan now, and there's conflict on the Pakistan-Afghan border, and they're using our equipment. The $80 billion plus of equipment we left there. And at the time, 3 years ago, it was like, why, or 4 years ago, why are they doing this? Why are we doing this? And it just seems that there's a nefarious intent, like the man behind the curtain, or the Wizard of Oz, the wizard behind the curtain, that somebody is stirring some evil witch's brew and hoping this kind of this nefarious activity continues to a point where, they could. This is all speculation, where they could target people like the men that are in this room right now, because we may cause we may be converted at some point, or maybe our views are
Boom.
too
America's
extreme.
homegrown terrorist.
Boom.
It just seems like is this the finale to the end of what was the Patriot Act? Is this, you said Al Qaeda, is this maybe the Patriot Act 2.0, where it's targeting patriots this time instead of supposedly protecting patriots? And it just seems all too convenient for what most of us, I think, were hoping what was going to happen here very quickly on January 20th, where we would have a new administration and maybe a new lease on life. And like I said, this is speculation on my part. If anybody else has a take on that, or
The only thing is that I don't think mainstream media really covered the tie of Berg being a converted Muslim. So I don't know.
That doesn't fit their narrative, because it doesn't make the left. It doesn't benefit the left's narrative, right? Because the left is,
They
minority. Yeah, the minorities are oppressed. So.
well, they're praising Europe for their inclusion, for all these.
Europe's doing great right now.
Yeah, it's not on fire. It's not.
Thinking about moving there.
Just have
Mostly
one
peaceful
random train of thought though. If we
ahead.
were tying into the symbols, like the symbolism that you were talking about too. The Desert Eagle now kind of just triggered my mind. Right? Who makes the Desert Eagle? Where'd that come from?
IWI.
IWI, which is Israeli, right?
Israeli weapons.
So in my head, like as he said it, which it goes against. It goes against.
We're gonna go there.
Don't tell Tristan.
About it, but as he was talking about the symbolism of everything, and I went through a course called ASA, which is Advanced Situational Awareness, where we do like a whole week basically covering like symbolic things and like what they mean. Right as he was talking about that, I was like, oh shit, Desert Eagle. It just kind of clicked for me. I was like, oh no. That almost could be tied into another symbol.
A Desert Eagle killing an American Green Beret in a Tesla vehicle outside of Trump Tower.
The symbol of opulence.
I don't want to spark too much of the debates because it's a very heady conversation to have about.
Oh no, do spark, throw that match.
Like my perspective is that it's a Green Beret trying to whistleblow some stuff, and then how are they trying to twist it? That's how I look at like the Muslim stuff and like going to the mosque and like the reporter going into his house and saying that stuff. That's how that's my perspective, is like, how do we cover up this whistleblow? Well, we're just going to tie it into this other stuff that happened that's unrelated. Because the only thing that they have been able to tie into between the two was that they both use the same rental company.
True.
But when I talked
Turo
about
stocks,
that
where they at?
earlier, that's just somebody renting out their vehicle to another person. Like, I own this truck, so I am going to let somebody else rent it. Whereas if you were to try and rent from, a different rental company, like an official rental company, wouldn't there be a lot more of a paper trail behind that? That's just where my brain goes with it. But then the Desert Eagle thing and the symbolicism kind of threw me.
I think you're onto something with the Desert Eagle thing. I did not think of that at all, but that is very astute, and I think there might be something there. Because if this individual, let's say they were just a staffer for the Clintons and they blew themselves up in front of Trump Tower, we wouldn't be having this conversation, and everybody would just kind of be like, well, it's just another body count for the Clintons. Yeah. But I think that because of the person's background, and
Well, that's a good point because soft personnel are highly regarded in our society.
respected.
Highly, yes, they are. Like if you have tiers of professions in the U.S., and fast food is down at F, and like a doctor or a lawyer is A, special operations is S tier, right? Like
Infantry's at the top.
And they're the biggest pain in the ass for me to do what I want to do here.
But right,
Slaying hoes and hanging with bros.
yeah.
It definitely, it almost, just from what you said, Mr. White, it seems like that maybe part of the message then is, speculating, we can get your best.
I don't know if it's you can get your best, but
Maybe we can turn your best.
It's a start.
We can come after your best.
That's if we are accepting the narrative that they are converts to Muslim, right?
Yep.
Can I reference a TV show in here?
Absolutely.
You ever seen, anyone in here seen the show Homeland?
Oh yeah.
You seen Homeland?
Mental programming.
Yeah, well, the very first, you could break it up in like all 8 seasons in 3 big chapters. But the first big chapter focuses around Nicholas Brody. He's the Marine that was left in Iraq, and he got held up for like 8 or 9 years, beat the shit daily. And the only thing that brought him.
Is that the redheaded guy from Band of Brothers?
Yeah, great actor.
I thought Brody was in Point Break.
He might have been too.
All right.
That's Bodhi,
Yeah.
the Bodhisattva.
Yeah. But he's actually English dude. He's like, his accent's totally insane, different from what.
That's right, Agent Utah.
But anyway, 8, 9 years, beat the shit every day, and then his handler was actually controlling the guys that beat shit out of him, let him free one day and let him walk around, just mind his business in his holding cell, and he saw other Muslims praying, so he found his way into that, and that was the one seeking light and salvation he could have there, because that's all he get to fucking have, because he's POW for forever, and then
What is it called? Not Nightingale, but
Stockholm Syndrome.
Stockholm Syndrome.
there you go.
Yeah. It feels good to feel. Dude, I smoked a Marlboro Red during my interrogation because I wanted to feel normal.
But
I hadn't smoked in 15 years.
converting to Islam, that wasn't what did him in. What did him in was
I got lightheaded.
the head motherfucker. He was forcing him to teach English to his child. So he came to love the child, but then the child was killed in a drone strike, and that radicalized him in effect. So I'm not saying that's what happened, but maybe like if all the deaths that he witnessed, maybe he sought absolution by going to a mosque, and that's just another side of the puzzle that isn't really part of the official narrative, but may actually be the true story.
Yet there is a possibility that I'm biased and I just don't want to see one of my own
Right.
being converted.
That's fair.
But
Certainly
Totally
not.
fair.
But it's backed. Your bias is backed and validated by the fact that
It's
you have experience with it.
extraordinarily uncommon in our
It is.
Yeah.
Like-
But
Yes.
beyond extraordinarily uncommon.
I mean, the problems that we have. I mean, we know guys that struggle with PTSD and
Do you really?
traumatic events. Well, a few. Some of them might even be in this room, but which is why this is for therapeutical purposes to dissect the world around us. But I mean, if that were the case, with everything that's transpired, with all the brothers and sisters we've lost in combat over the last 20 years over bullshit, you would think this would be more common, and it's not.
remember
And
when
that is the question that I still am like, this just doesn't make sense.
remember I said the other day, like fiction is more real than reality now.
Yeah.
It really is.
It takes, and I forgot who said it, it is easier to fool somebody than to convince them they are being fooled.
Yep.
and it's the truth.
I
Unfortunately,
think I told you that,
you may have told me. You're a wise individual. That's why
but
you're the colonel.
I didn't make it up.
That's why you're the colonel.
No, I can rationalize. Like, I'm gonna sound like a crazy person here.
Send it.
One of the best converting to Islam just because we are Americans and like being a key proponent of being American is freedom. Freedom to do whatever the fuck I want as long as I'm not hurting anybody or taking something away from somebody. I mean, I say that because I'm not religious. I was brought up in Christian school and then it kind of like something clicked and then it just never happened again just because personal experience. So like anybody can do whatever the fuck they want. Just don't hurt the people. Don't take away from people's liberties or freedoms. But that's just like
Well, but and also to convert, my cousin just recently converted, and he's a Marine Corps sniper, and
Ronnie?
my ex-wife was Muslim, and I knew a lot of Muslims through her that they never tried to convert me, and I looked at them. These were people that were one individual. I mean, he served in the military. He had 3 tours, in Afghanistan, and I mean, to talk to him about it, it literally brought him to tears because he had several friends. I mean, he was in a hellacious firefight that he told me about, and he started, crying, and you could see the pain. And never once did I feel like, oh man, he's gonna want to take that out against, the American government. It was nothing like that. And I think there's several of us in here that we've worked with Muslims, and there's like anybody in life. You've got your shitheads, and then you've got, just regular folk. But I've never, this whole thing with Matt Berg is an outlier.
yeah.
It's not the norm.
It's not even just an outlier. It is like in another galaxy.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is so far beyond an outlier. It is, yeah, it's literally in another galaxy.
It's
It's
like all
completely
the
unheard of.
all the evidence Mr. Black threw up, like maybe he actually was a Muslim, like that was his thing. If that's true, and if that was something that the propaganda machine wanted to use, it would be front and center.
I have like a
Because like you guys hearing that, you think like, oh, one of my buddies is a fucking Muslim now. Like fuck this guy.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
if there's a different side to it, like maybe it was his way to seek absolution.
Yeah, but not even necessarily. I wouldn't say.
Like another caveat statement.
yeah, fuck this guy. That wouldn't be the first thing.
That's
that
the
comes
most
to
extreme
mind.
version,
Yeah, because it's like I consider myself to be for the most part, an average thinker in our community, and if one of my friends is coming to me, like, hey, I'm thinking about converting to Islam, I'd be like, go for it. I wouldn't treat that person any different.
No.
If that's how you find your source and
Yeah.
it's done in love and peace towards your fellow human, then God be with you.
Yeah, I mean, you were married to a Muslim.
Yeah, and I mean, I hate to bring this up, but
I let one cut my hair
well,
when I was over there.
being involved in that family, I never once they were American. They were just as American as we were. There was never they were capitalists. They wanted to make money, and I never got the sense they're like, well, it was there was no like oh my
American
God, they're
dream.
hiding. Now I will tell you, there were some other things that had some connections to a 3-letter agency, but that's probably a topic for another time.
I do have an example to piggyback off yours too. Is
Go ahead.
at the schoolhouse I work at a schoolhouse for the Army, right? And so we teach like cultural awareness and stuff like that, and like we teach use of interpreter, right? A bunch of our interpreters all are like from Afghanistan. I think out of all of our like Dari speakers, they're all from Afghanistan. They all worked with some of them worked with SOF, some of them didn't and stuff. They're over here, and one day I struck up a conversation with one, even though my school was like, "Oh, you're not supposed to talk to him about this stuff." But I was like, "All right, whatever. They're people, so I'm gonna
Put
talk
them back in the box.
yeah. I was like, hey, so for you, like, what's it like being like not an extreme, but a dedicated Muslim family in America? And one of my interpreters had one of the best responses. He was like, it's great. I can do what I want as a Muslim, and my daughter can go to any school she wants to, and she's getting ready to go to college.
Yeah,
And he was like, I love it.
yeah.
Nobody bothers me. We just do our thing, and where we work is great. We make great money, And he's like, I'm using this money to put my daughter through college. And then when the Afghanistan pullout happened, he was like, I was even able to use resources from where I work here to help get my brother and my mother out. And he was like, I love it because I can do what I want. And like I said, like he said, that my daughter can go to whatever school she wants to go to. And she was about to go to I don't remember what school it was, but it was like a normal name like Georgia State or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's an example of like, just the American dream, and you can have your religious purviews and like do what you want. And
Yeah.
it's okay, That was just a good story, feel-good story.
To contrast that, I think Afghanistan just passed a law where women can't leave the building without their husband's permission.
They can't.
Yeah, they can't even go to like secondary type of schools either anymore.
And they just passed a law that they cannot build any more buildings with windows that women work in. That's a real thing. I thought that was fake, and I did a little bit more deep diving on that, and that's real.
If a building has a window, it must be sealed.
Is it a casino?
Yeah, pretty much, sure.
I didn't have it because we're having video problems, but I'll bring it up the next time we get together. But I put a video together from when Afghanistan fell, Kabul fell, and the Taliban had a parade in Kabul, and they didn't really have any American equipment in this parade. It was, they're typically what you would find in a cache of Taliban fighters, AKs. IED making equipment, things like that. But they had a parade, and it was very B-movie-esque. Well, their last parade this last year in August did not look B-movie-esque. They were flying the several Blackhawks that we left there. I see RG-33s, rolling down the tarmac, and it almost felt like it was a message to their handlers, like, we're ready. We've been training, and we're ready. And for what that is, what purpose, I don't know, but it did not. It just left a really shitty feeling in my stomach. And
Thanks, Billy.
And I wonder with what just happened with this Matt Berg, and it almost seems like to me like a culmination of multiple events because of how vast even our own military is, the Army. I mean, it's just huge. Coming from the Marine Corps into the Army, I was just like, oh my God, I cannot believe how big the Army is. So, I mean, who knows with everything happening, what really is, what's the end goal? Like what are they pushing for? And this is just my speculation and opinion. Because I think we're going to see, unfortunately,
We're going to see more of this.
More
Expansion.
we're going to have a more chaotic situation to inevitably allow them to throw the net over all of us and just kind of ring us in. Does anybody see anything contrary to that? Or
2020 or the January 6th with the FBI informants in the Capitol? Stuff
wait, I'm sorry. Say that again.
like the Summer of Love with BLM.
Yes.
Or the January 6th with the FBI informants in the Capitol. Stuff
And
like that.
I think it feels like they're done probing. They've conducted all their tests.
COVID was a beta test.
Yeah, it was a beta test. And then you even have somebody like Dr. Peter Hotez, who is Dr. Fauci's little minion, saying that on the 21st, they're going to release another
How do you
bioweapon.
know the date a pandemic is going to be released unless you're releasing it?
Gavin Newsom already labeled a state of emergency in California for H5N1.
Wait, say that again?
Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, already enacted a state of emergency in California because of H5N1.
Really?
New bovine swine flu. Fucking knows it.
Well, I've been hearing like stuff out of China that they have. Is it the 5-1 that they're locking people in?
H5N1. Normal flu is H1N1. I don't know the designation of COVID.
So does anybody got anything else to add, or any other rabbit holes we should travel down this evening? Do we have any other? Bueller? Anybody else? No?
Larry the Cable Guy?
Well, okay. So I think with that being said, I think that kind of paints a picture of our mindset as far as the group and what we've seen take place in the last couple days with this terrible situation once again.
I can chime in real quick.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So, as far as New Orleans goes, there was an attack conducted there because that was a target of opportunity. So a little bit of what we talked about on our first run through of tonight's podcast that got cut out is in regards to training, right? Arm yourself, arm your family, train with that equipment, daytime, nighttime, right? Stay vigilant.
Have a plan.
Yep, have a plan. Buy dry frozen food, buy ammo, buy guns, and train with that equipment. Stay vigilant, right? Because if you do not look like a target of opportunity, you will not become a target of opportunity.
Amen. Mr. White, do you have anything to add to that? We'll do a little roundsy around. No good? No. Phil, you have anything to add?
Stay sexy, drink good liquor, have good friends. Take care of your family.
Amen.
Love your family and friends. And stay
Amen.
hydrated. Drink water.
Tyler, you got something to add before I think we're getting ready to call in?
I learned dry fires pay off. 20 minutes a day, that's all it takes.
Dry fire, 20 minutes a day. Colonel, you got anything you want to add before we
Mental programming. Understand it, see it, dissect it.
Amen. Well, I think that might do it for this episode of the POLCAST. I'm going to second what Mr. White had said. Be vigilant. Keep your head on a swivel. Keep your veins ice and your powder dry. And get to know your neighbor. Or get to know your neighbor beyond your neighbor. Maybe even...
Maybe marry your neighbor.
Maybe marry your neighbor. Maybe start. I heard an interesting idea from my significant other, from a friend of hers, that their church is starting prepper classes. And hey, you have all these people already in the building. Maybe start finding out who's a doctor, who's a carpenter, who's a plumber, who's a mechanic, who has a farm. Because we might need those people, or you might need those people within your own inner circle here in the very near future. And God willing, that does not happen. I would speak for everybody right now. I don't think anybody here wants any type of conflict or confrontation.
We call that an auxiliary.
Amen. We can get into some of that maybe a little later. The auxiliary, something else? Maybe underground.
You don't want it, but if you bring it,
we got
you're
it.
gonna get it.
So with that being said, America, thank you very much for tuning in. You can follow us on the X Machine or the Twitters at LibertyApe76, and we are on YouTube until they take this down at the POLCAST. So with that being said, we want to wish everybody a happy Sunday, and make sure you're taking care of yourself. The first thing you can do right off the bat is yourself, your body. Take care of your body, because if you don't, nobody else is going to do it for you. So with that, have a good morning, Godspeed, and long live liberty.